An independent Scotland, which I look forward to happening very soon, would use the pound while that was in our interests until such times as the conditions were right to move to a different arrangement. Because you see, that is the benefit of independence. We take decisions that are right for our interests here in Scotland, rather than having decisions that are against our interests imposed on us by Westminster. But I have to say, and I in some ways admire him for this actually, because it is very, very brave of Jackson Carlaw to stand up here today and talk about currency. When he next gets to his feet, and purely in the interests of transparency, would he care to share with the Chamber how much of its value the pound has lost in the last couple of years directly as a result of Tory policy on Brexit?
Jackson Carlaw.
True to the last, the First Minister's practising for 2 years from now when she's sitting here as Leader of the Opposition. Because what her answer boils down to is this. 5 years ago it was keep the pound forever. Today it's ditch the pound as soon as possible. And I hope the First Minister's got those 6 tests written down in front of her today, because she had a wee bit of a problem yesterday remembering what they actually were. One of them, which she did forget about then, is would a separate currency meet the needs of Scottish residents and businesses for stability and continuity of their financial arrangements, and would it command wide support? So having failed yesterday, let me offer the First Minister a chance to redeem herself today. Will she name a single business representative body or trade union which has given its support to scrapping the pound?
First Minister.
Well, I'm sure businesses and trade unions across the country will want to see a Scottish Parliament with the ability to do what is right for Scotland. But if he wants to hear some views, let's hear some views of businesses and others about the immediate threat that is facing Scotland. How about the Institute of Directors? It's difficult to imagine a policy that inflicts more economic harm on Scotland than Brexit. How about the Resolution Foundation? Household incomes are around £1,500 a year lower today as a result of Brexit. The Federation of Small Businesses, the recent months of turmoil, political uncertainty, economic uncertainty have had a negative impact on business confidence. The former chair of Standard Life, Brexit is an unmitigated disaster. The principal of Glasgow University, Brexit is the single biggest public crisis we've had to face in living memory. It's because of that disaster being imposed on Scotland that Scotland needs the power to take our own decisions. And the Tories are laughing about it, but it is no laughing matter for businesses and individuals the length and breadth of the country. And lastly, Presiding Officer, Jackson Carlaw talks about who's going to be in opposition and in government in a couple of years' time. I should today congratulate him on his period of acting leadership of the Conservative Party, because polls at the weekend suggested that under his stewardship, the Tories have gone from second place in Scottish politics to third place, or actually in one poll, to fourth place in Scottish politics. Those of us in these benches thoroughly endorse Jackson Carlaw's record in office.
Jackson Carlaw.
That is customarily generous of the First Minister. I can assure her that, unlike some, I won't be coming to her for a reference. But I do have a sister-in-law who does HR and can help polish up that CV she's apparently got sitting with the UN, where she's looking for a future job opportunity. But let me wish her well in the 2 years, or perhaps significantly less time, left to her before the next election, 2 years today. Now, perhaps there is actually a reason why, in that great big long list of quotations, Nicola Sturgeon didn't actually list one from anybody who is in favour of scrapping the pound. Perhaps it's because Nicola Sturgeon's plan, from day one of independence, could lead to an estimated 45,000 Scottish homes being pushed into negative equity, similar to that seen during the 2008 financial crisis. Now, I know the SNP don't like to hear it, but unfortunately for them, that's not just our view. It's the verdict this week of Richard Marsh, one of the First Minister's own economic experts. Has he, an advisor to her own Growth Commission, just got it all wrong?
First Minister.
Well, of course, the essence of independence is that we take the decisions in this Parliament that are right for Scotland, so that we don't have to have imposed upon us by Westminster decisions that are damaging to our interests. The real threat to Scotland right now is that damage to our economy coming from Brexit, described as a disaster by so many businesses, individuals and academics, the length and breadth of the country. That's why we see support for independence increasing. It's why we see support for this government increasing. And it's why we see support for the Scottish Conservatives starting to go through the floor. Because people in Scotland know that the time is coming when we need to get rid of Tory governments once and for all and take control of our own future into our own hands.
Jackson Carlo.
So we've got a plan by the First Minister to ditch the pound and create a new Scottish currency. Yesterday she couldn't remember the 6 tests that she herself had set for it. It's not supported by any impartial business groups or trade unions. Her own party's Growth Commission advisor think it's a turkey. The First Minister was right when she said that permanently keeping the UK pound is in the best interests of Scotland. Yeah. Isn't it just a simple fact that the best way to keep Scotland successful, to protect our pensions, to boost jobs, is for Scotland to have nothing whatsoever to do with Nicola Sturgeon's plans for a breakaway currency, to keep our UK pound and keep Scotland in the UK?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, as people with slightly longer memories than it suits Jackson Carlaw to have will recall, is that Jackson Carlaw and his colleagues told Scotland in 2014 that we wouldn't be allowed to keep the UK pound. There is not a shred of consistency in their arguments. What independence means is that we take decisions that are right for the interests of businesses and individuals, the length and breadth of our country. And what it means is that we don't have to face the prospect of decisions like Brexit being imposed on us by Westminster. That's why we see support for independence rising, and it's why we see the terror in the eyes of Jackson Carlaw and his colleagues as they see the writing well and truly on the wall.